Hello, everybody. James Williams here. Just gonna kind of give some of my thoughts on what I really took from today, and how it really kind of revolved around journalism, and more specifically, sports journalism. Today is June the 2nd of 2014, and like I said, journalism, I guess, just about like every other day, it's kind of a dominant part of my day. Um, One of the highlights of today, being involved in journalism, was having some of the staff writers at my college newspaper kind of come up to me and tell me and kind of express their interest in wanting to be an editor for the sports section, which is something I prided myself on because I was the sports editor for my college newspaper, and so it's something I always kind of keep a close eye on and whatnot. So I'm always encouraging others to take the next step forward because at the end of the day, um, I like to see others have the same success that I have had for whatever. I mean, if you want to call it success, I don't. I'm not Stephen A. Smith or Skip Bayless or Jason Whitlock, and I'm just throwing out the names that come to my head at the moment, but I'm not saying I've had success to those levels. No, no, no. But, I guess for whatever it's worth, more experience than the people um, at the college level, I guess you can say, or at least at the community college level. Um, so like I was saying, it's always nice to kind of see some of the newer staff writers show signs of them being interested in continuing on the newspaper, being in the media, using social media and whatnot. So when one or two of them like to come up and kind of ask me about the experiences that you can get from being an editor and what responsibilities come with it, those are always positive parts of my day, and that was one of the things that I did take away from today that I did think was really awesome. Um, and then you got the negative side of it, I guess you can say. There's not that there's anything wrong with it, but criticizing the media, especially when the ones doing the criticizing are the ones on your own staff, or that you kind of have a similar interest in, when, for example, when it comes to sports journalism, which I'll kind of get into in a minute. One of the interesting things that actually kind of started off my day was Brian Lewis and I had a conversation of sorts on Twitter. Um, Not anything bad. I saw it as like friendly debate for the most part. I'm pretty sure he did too. Um, but he kind of interesting the way it started. I mean, kind of more or less the way I was interpreting what he was saying was, I don't know, he felt ESPN had some sort of agenda He started it off by saying Chris Broussard listed Kevin Durant as the fifth best small forward of all time, but then he's from ESPN. They've got an agenda to promote a rigged NBA. And that kind of threw me off a little bit. And he continues to say the NBA is like the WWE, just an act for us to be entertained by. Well, at the end of the day, sports are here to entertain you, and I guess probably not for everyone, but the WWE is entertaining to most or some. Um, I, I really didn't get where he was going with it. He's making it sound like ESPN more or less had an agenda because of the way they cover the NBA. I called it covering the NBA. He saw it as that they had an agenda, and he said every media circuit has an agenda. It's called cultivation. They don't show the NFL because they don't show games. Um, I think it's safe to say that the NBA is bigger as far as an audience when it comes to the NBA compared to the NHL, and at the same time, I'm the fact that both playoffs between the two different sports are going on at the same time. Um, I'm sure basketball is going to get the nod on that, and get the coverage, especially because, yeah, like he said, the NBA, then if the NHL is not shown, for example, on ESPN as much because they don't show their games. I mean, I don't think that's really fair to say, but I think if he's saying to share their games, to show their games is the reason why they don't show the NHL, that kind of doesn't make any sense because that comes down to money and TV deals and whatnot. The NBA has a TV deal with TNT, with with ESPN, so of course they're gonna get the coverage. That's the main sport, anyways. I mean that I don't want to say it has priority, but it kind of does in a way, just kind of based off what are you gonna get ratings off of? I mean, if when you think about it, at the end of the day, media outlets such as ESPN are very heavy on their media, on their um, television. I don't know what words I'm trying to say. Their television ratings and whatnot. So of course they're gonna try and go with what's gonna get them the most ratings. And that's not saying that the way they cover things really are gonna change. I mean, if I'm sure they would cover the NBA the same way they would the NHL if the NHL was the bigger sport over NBA. But anyways, he said they limit hockey because they don't broadcast games. Well, yeah, I mean, to some extent, yes. He says instead they force NBA with LeBron's life story. He put LOL, so I guess he's kind of kidding with that. But I hear this a lot. LeBron James is covered so much on ESPN and other big media outlets. Let me ask you a question. If they weren't talking about LeBron James for at all, if they didn't talk about LeBron James at all, don't you think people would be upset and wondering why they're not talking about LeBron James when he's the greatest basketball player of this era as of, within the last 10 years or so? I guess you can say once Kobe kind of got out of his prime or whatever it's worth. So, I brought up the comparison to Michael Jordan for whatever it was worth. Again, I even made it known. It's seen as a bigger deal because ESPN it has multiple channels, but their main one may focus a lot on LeBron James. The same way I'm sure if this was the same situation they would with Michael Jordan. I'm sure for that time period, Michael Jordan received just as much coverage as LeBron James probably did. At the same time, it comes across as a bigger deal now because you have more out there available to fans, to media, to express their thoughts and feelings, much like I'm doing right now with this podcast. And that goes with, the whole period of time for LeBron James in which he's in this social media technology era that Michael Jordan more or less wasn't. And so when you have that, of course it's going to look like he's getting a lot more coverage than someone like Michael Jordan or Magic Johnson. But if when he's the best player in basketball, which is more popular than Ovechkin and Crosby, neither one whose team is in the NHL, and they're probably the two bigger stars of their generation right now when it comes to hockey. Of course, LeBron James is going to continue to get the headlines. But that doesn't mean that ESPN is in cahoots. ESPN is in cahoots with the NBA because that is not true. And as much as people like to complain that they continue to show LeBron James, I think that's absolutely false because there was a period in time during the first and the second round, especially that first round of the NBA playoffs this year, in which I totally forgot the Heat were even in the playoffs. Because they went about their business. Of course, they were expected to win, and it was a cakewalk more or less. But I barely even remembered. I kind of didn't even pay attention to the Heat series, and it was kind of like, oh yeah, The Heat made it to the second round. I forgot they were even in the playoffs. Which is kind of like, it is what it is. Of course, I mean, I guess you could say they play exciting basketball at times, but for the most part, I mean, most people are immune to it by now, or at least I would assume you'd be immune to LeBron James coverage. They have a chance. They made it to the finals and have a chance to three-peat, don't you think? Of course, we're gonna get a lot of LeBron James coverage because he's going for a three-peat. The same way Kobe and Shaq had their three-peat going on with the Lakers, they were in the headlines just as much, I'm sure. Now, with all that being said, he goes on to say, well, I go on to say, and I use this to further my point and say, I don't think NBA and ESPN or anyone else is in cahoots to that nature because what happened during the NBA playoffs that ESPN kind of pushed the NBA playoffs and the NHL playoffs aside. That was for the NFL draft. That was 3 days long, more or less. Um, and I believe had way, way, way higher ratings than the NBA. And those are playoff games compared to just people getting their name called on a stage. So I think ESPN is just going with what is the main thing they want that people are going to want to see or have an interest in emotionally or whatnot, that the bigger story of that day they're going to put out there. And if that's what it is, and if they feel they need to cover all 3 days heavy of the NFL draft, then that's what they'll do. And the ratings showed that, at least in my opinion, that they made the right choice to cover the NFL playoffs, not the NFL draft. Now, are you going to say the NFL is in cahoots with ESPN? Or what? It's not like we were all forced to watch the NFL draft. I personally was watching the NFL draft over the NBA playoffs. There's nothing wrong with the NBA, but when it comes to the NFL, and this is almost proven as fact because of the ratings that the draft got over live game action, playoff action, that NFL really is the number one sport in America. You can't say globally and all that because you have soccer, and of course with the World Cup and all that stuff coming up, I'm sure we'll see all that kicking up and whatnot as the number one sport, whoop-de-whoop, which is fine. But in America, it's the NFL, followed by the NBA, followed by probably, I'm gonna say, is MLB, and then the NHL. So you can't even say they don't show NFL enough. They're trying to compete with the number two for playoff games, playoff series for playoff series, more or less, at the exact same time when the NHL is basically the number four major sport, and then it's going at the same time as the number two major sport. Of course, they're not going to show a whole lot of that. I mean, I'm sorry, Barry Melrose is the only analyst for hockey that is shown on ESPN TV. But I mean, if no one's really watching it, to the match the numbers in which they are with things like the NBA, there's nothing you can do about that. So I don't blame ESPN for doing what they have to do. It's the same thing when they're not showing LeBron James. They're gonna show everyone else's new favorite son in Cleveland. And Johnny Manziel. What happened to that? Oh, we're getting a lot too much Johnny Manziel. And so they switch up to LeBron James, I guess you can say. Oh, we're getting too much LeBron James. Then it's back to Johnny Manziel. If these are the two guys that will continue to be in the headlines and that are making headlines, then that's who you're going to get. You're not going to hear about Rory McIlroy or I can't even think of anybody else at the moment. I mean, what? Greg Oden? Greg Oden was a topic for a day when he signed with the Heat. But that's not the major story on that roster or in that league. No, it's LeBron James. LeBron James was the guy during the first half of his career, I believe up to this point, I guess we'll just say halfway, was criticized for being the best player but not having titles. And now that he's in the middle of this three-peat, everyone was hating on him, but now everyone, is kind of over it. Yeah, he's not going to win. He hasn't won a championship. Kobe has 8, or however many Kobe has. 5 or 6 or 7. I'm starting to sound like LeBron James when he said they're going to get 1, they're going to get 2, not 3, not 4, not 5. Whoop-de, 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 whoop. So what I'm saying is, if you don't want to watch the LeBron James stories, if you don't want to watch the NBA, don't watch it. By you watching it, by you staying on SportsCenter, you're adding another number to the rating, which it comes across on the paper as, ooh, we did, 1 higher than we would have done without you. They don't look to see people's attitudes through these ratings. It's too many people. They just see the number and they run with that. If the highest viewing rating or segment was during the Johnny Manziel part, the next day, the next hour is going to be Johnny Manziel's show. I mean, it's almost a fact. I mean, maybe, I don't know the whole TV world to that extent when it comes to ratings and stuff, but you're going to run with your headline. That's the same thing with the newspaper. You don't put the cupcake story that happens every day on as your front big main head story with a big headline and a big photo. No. That's whatever, the bigger event is for that day. For example, the sports page. Are they going to show Tiger Woods winning a minor tournament? Or are they going to show the Heat winning a championship? The Heat winning a championship because it only happens once a year. The championship game or the championship series is only once a year. Tiger Woods has at least 10 tries, 10 chances of really winning a tournament. It's common sense. It's priority. Anyways, without this sounding like a rant, the other thing on social media that was off of Facebook. That was between me and Brian Lewis on Twitter. Excuse me. Now going to Facebook, there's a few people on there who like to say they're sports journalists, and I'm not saying that they're not. And I think these people have very good intentions, but if a few things don't go your way, you apply for a few jobs, a few opportunities, and they don't go your way, don't be mad at the business. Maybe this sounds like a rant. I don't know. But it's like the saying goes. Let me try and think of it before I mess it up. Don't hate the player, hate the game. So so let's see. I guess maybe that's what he is doing. Maybe I stand corrected. Maybe that wasn't the best example. But whatever, we'll go with it. You don't have to hate, journalism because the game isn't going in your favor. Just because, you get a few bad breaks, you apply for a few things, and you don't get them, that doesn't mean you're not good. That just means there's a few other people better. Maybe there's someone who's done it for a few more years more than you have, or has a few more notches in their belt than you do. A few more badges like the Cub Scouts do. I don't know. However you want to put it. I mean, the same could be said. Maybe they have a degree from Harvard. Yeah, I'm sure that if you have a journalism degree from Harvard or Columbia or ASU or wherever else you can get a journalism scholarship, I'm sure that will look a lot better than just a community college degree. For me, I mean, if I lose out on a job opportunity to someone who has a degree while I'm still in community college trying to get my degree, you can't be mad at the people. They're making a smart business move on their part, I guess you can say, to try and get the guy who's more talented or who has the most potential to fill that spot. Again, It's not like I'm saying that there's anything wrong with you or them or anyone who wants to pursue or is in sports media. But everything's not going to go your way. Just like LeBron James is not. He made it to the finals and played against the Mavericks. It didn't go his way. But what did he do? He came back the next year, made the playoffs, made the finals, returned to the finals, won a championship. It's not going to happen overnight. But another thing too, I'm curious to know what jobs some of my friends on Facebook are applying for in which they're having trouble trying to find jobs. Don't get me wrong, I know it's tough to find jobs in media in general, let alone sports journalism, because I'm sure that's a pretty popular field and section among those in, other parts of the newspaper and whatnot. But that doesn't mean you should give up if this is something you want to do. I mean, if you have other opportunities, other opportunities in other fields or occupations or whatever you want to say, that's fine. The best of luck to you. But don't knock journalism and saying the quality that paid writers, or I guess even professional writers, or journalists or columnists, don't say their work is crap out of pure bitterness. That's kind of silly. What is that accomplishing? I asked my friend John Mathis on Twitter, and I'm not calling him out. I'm just using this example because this is what happened today. John was saying something about um, the quality of work he's seen from whichever media outlets or newspapers he's reading. The quality isn't all that great. My response to him was simply, who is he talking about? I'm curious, because maybe he has a different perspective or different insight or mindset on what his expectations are when it comes to journalism and what is good and what is not. Again, if it's a columnist, their opinion's gonna vary. You don't always have to agree with them. If you tend not to agree with them a lot and they just make you angry and you think they're dumb, then don't read their stuff. It's plain and simple. The other thing with this too, don't think just because they're paid they're lazy. That makes no sense. They got paid for a reason. There was a few other people commenting saying, they had a few breaks go their way, they knew a few people. At the end of the day, that's kind of what journalism is about. Partly, when it comes to trying to get a job, it's all about who you know. You can write 1,000 stories, but if only 10 people are seeing them, you know, what does that do? I mean, sure. How am I trying to say that? I mean, sure, you'll you'll have tons of clips and things to show employers, but how are you going to get all these chances to talk to employers if you're not out networking? You need a network with people. You need to have connections in which when these people move on to succeed, then they have the opportunity to bring you in, whether it's for pay or whether it's for free just to start out. You have those opportunities. Every opportunity I have had, and I'm not bragging in any way, but when it comes to just about all the opportunities other than the ones I've had when I've signed up for a college newspaper class, have been through opportunities I have received. I have not applied for a single job, and I'm blessed and thankful for that. I mean, that I've been able to have these opportunities without having to really kind of apply. These opportunities will come to you. Call it good karma, call it whatever you want. But you gotta be patient when it comes to these things, just like anything in life. If this is something you want to do, it's not about, and this is something I tell some of the other sports journalists or those who want to be sports journalists. You can have a website. I have a website too. You can have a blog. You can call it a blog, a website, whatever you want to call it. Don't think because you write 4 stories that makes you better than anybody else. Because when you get to a newspaper, they only want you to write 1 or 2, in all honesty. You know why? Because they want quality over quantity. And again, supposedly, according to some of my friends on Facebook, there's a lack in quality when it comes to journalism. I don't think that's fair to say, because I asked you, who were these people that you're reading that you're not happy with? I want to know. I'm curious to read some of their work. I want to know. That way, you know why? I can be better. So I can say, well, if people aren't liking this, or this person's not liking this, maybe there's another person out there who's not liking that. So let me see if maybe I can do something different with it. I want to improve. I want to get better, and that applies to anything. If you're a basketball player, I would hope you'd want feedback, because you're not going to make it to the league by doing things on your own without getting some sort of feedback or criticism. You're going to get criticism. So again, there's nothing wrong with criticism, but the only way someone can get better is by telling them. If you're going to go out of your way to go on Facebook and post that you're not happy with the stories you're reading from certain people who are paid professional journalists, I would say you tell them. I mean, if you're not going to speak up and tell them, then they're going to continue to put out work you don't like. I'm not saying they're going to change their whole writing style for you, but if no one says anything, and you're not saying anything, then maybe them being mediocre is what they think is okay. No one's complained about it yet, so why should I bother? They're not going to bother unless you bring it to their attention. Let them know, hey, I think you could have done this better. I think you could have shown stronger opinion here, there, and whatnot. I really didn't understand what your article was about. Okay. For me, I know I have some things to go back and revise. That's the same thing as when you're in your English class and your professor gives you back your paper, your rough draft, and tells you these are some things you need to fix. The exact same thing. So, if you're going to put yourself out there in the media like that, you need to be able to accept criticism. Media is not always the ones giving the criticism, but they're also being criticized as well. Another thing, if you really want to be a sports journalist, or a journalist in general, and you are in college, I strongly encourage you to please sign up for your college newspaper. That is the best thing you can do. You can sit here and write blogs all you want in between your homework and your classes, but you're not going to get the true experience and understanding of journalism, in which will get you hired, if you don't know the basic fundamentals. The only way you're going to learn the basic fundamentals, just like you did with the basic fundamentals of life, which are ABC 1, 2, 3, is through kindergarten. If you want to learn the ABCs and the 1, 2, 3s and the 5 W's, the who, what, where, when, why, and all that good stuff, the basic stuff when it comes to journalism, you can only do that at school. School, the place in which you learn. If you're going to school and you want to be a journalist, you want to be a biology major, you want to be political science major, you want to be a nurse, a doctor, you need to be going to get these so you can get to where you want to be, I would assume. Call me crazy. But I would think if you want to be a journalist, you're sitting here, you're pumping out all these articles to put on your website. That's good. But are those good enough to be used with a resume? I don't think so. Because you have things such as AP style you need to learn. And trust me, you're not going to learn all, because I don't even know all of it. No one ever knows all of it. I don't even think the people who create the AP style book know all of AP style. That's why there's a book. AP style, the formatting, the way you handle quotes. I'm trying to think here. The ways in which you handle certain situations, the way you make decisions. You don't get all that until you're out in the field. You're not getting any more experience than you did after writing your first story at home about the game you saw on TV. You can only do that so many times before that is kind of the basic thing, you know? I mean, after the first game story or two, you're not getting anything from that. You're not talking to anyone, you're not doing interviews. You can write all you want, but that's half the battle. You guys gotta know that interviews are just as important, quotes are just as important, being right, being factual. And I mean, if these are the problems that they're seeing, some of my friends on Facebook are seeing with the articles they're reading from these paid professional journalists, then I would say that is one thing. But if you're just kind of bitter about the way your not your social media, but your media career has played out, that doesn't give you the right to take it out on journalism as a whole. Because a lot of the comments I was seeing today from not just one person, but quite a few people, you know, I kind of I saw it as, wait a minute, you can't speak and say the whole industry is bad because we're not all bad. Some of us are really trying. Some of us are really trying to improve. Some of us are really trying to do the best we can. And again, to sit there and say they're lazy and they're just trying to collect a paycheck, I don't know many people who want to do journalism for the paycheck. If you want money, you're in the wrong field. You have a better chance of winning the lotto than you do of making millions and millions of dollars as a journalist, especially at the local level. Especially at the local level, which is where people need to start. Don't apply for ESPN, NBC, CBS, MLB.com, NFL Network, whatever. Don't apply for all these places right away. Work for a college newspaper. Write for your city newspaper. Those are the places you need to go. Before you start looking to get paid, you need to work for free. You gotta get your foot in the door before you can walk through it. Before you can even get through it. It's a slow process. It's not long. Trust me, to get where I was at, it's been 2, 3 years. Not long at all. Not long at all. You know, I've seen people who've been in the same spot I'm in longer, but never really had the opportunities I've had. And if you guys aren't getting out there and you're quitting, you don't get some of the great opportunities that you may have even been interested in the beginning when you wanted to do sports journalism. As much as we like to criticize, watch, and enjoy good storylines in sports, that will only happen if you stick with it. Not every story is going to be great. Not every game you write about is going to be a championship game. But it's the story leading up to those championship games which are the real stories. So some things that, I hope you guys take away from this is just wait, and opportunities will come. Don't pursue opportunities. Don't think that you have to cut out pursuing opportunities. Still pursue them. But at the same time, keep an eye out and let some of them come to you, because they will. Just be confident in yourself. Have credibility. Be factual. Work with an editor at a newspaper, at a school newspaper, whatever. Get that experience. Going out in the field, interviewing, meeting deadlines, dealing with an editor breathing down your neck. Basic 101 stuff, AP style, formatting, headline creating, that's not easy. Designing a newspaper. So, oh no, newspapers are dying, we don't need that. Yeah, you do. The same way when you take a photo class, most of them, at least in my experience, I had to take a film class before I even thought about taking a digital class. You gotta learn about the history and stuff before you get anywhere when it comes to media or just about anything else in history. So, I guess turned out to be a little bit longer of a video than I thought. And probably from the way this video started, it didn't end out that way. Maybe, I don't know. But all I know is that journalism was a big part of today. Some was good. I got to help people out, encourage people, which hopefully this kind of does. Maybe it doesn't sound like it from my tone or whatever that I was trying to get across. Maybe I sound a little discouraging, but I'm just here to encourage people to take the next step with their journalism careers and whatever dreams they may have. Again, I'm not a professional by any means. I'm in the same spot many of you are in. But in order to get to that next step, you have to be patient. If any of you guys out there need any help, as far as, having your stories read over, asking for advice, I'm more than willing to help in any way that I can. And so hopefully, this helps you out, or helps someone else that you know. But don't ever give up on your dream of being a sports journalist, because someday it will pay off. You'll get to work for the company you want, if that's what you're in it for. I mean, to work for the mothership of ESPN or CNN or wherever you want to work. Bleacher Report. I don't know. Yardbarker. I don't know. Anyways, wherever your goals are, you're not going to reach them in a day. It's going to take time. It will take time. So with that being said, this has been James Williams. Follow me on Twitter, J.H.W. Reporter. All one word, no spaces, no underscores. J.H.W. Reporter on Twitter. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, tell me what you think of the video. Did you listen to the whole thing? Did you make it all the way through? Did this sound like a rant? I don't know. But hopefully this opened up the eyes of some of you guys. And if you have any questions, let me know. I'll answer any questions. Like I said, I'm not a professional by any means, but I like to think I could be helpful in some sort of way. So with that being said, James Williams signing off. You guys have a good one, and take care.